How many calories in a large bag of Haribo? You know the share bags that nobody shares? How many calories in a large bag of Haribo? 170. Any higher than 170? Higher or lower? 600. Anything on 600? What did you go? He's gone with 1,200. He said 800. 800, 2,000. So I did my homework yesterday. This used to be a Dunkin' Donut, by the way, but I changed it. It was actually 649 calories of sugar, bit of fat. So it is an awful lot of food, and we're all more perfectly capable and guilty of buying a bag and absolutely smashing it in an hour and less. And for me, one of the wake-up calls for me when I started studying nutrition was at the Commonwealth Games when they were sponsored by Percy Pigs at the Commonwealth Games. And if you think Haribo's bag, check out a bag of Percy Pigs, because as good as they taste, that good for a reason. Yeah, just read the labels, be aware of your choices. Be aware of it, why you're having it, what's it need. If you just sit there and go, yeah, no, this is a really crap choice and I'm going to do it anyway, fine, that is your choice, and you know what you're doing, you know the consequences. That's absolutely fine. I'm a massive believer in balance and having the foods that you enjoy, and then also getting it right as a performance athlete. But yeah, start reading food labels and make choices. I mean, I never put Haribo in anybody's competition plan, but I know they'll take it. I don't need to put it on there. But yeah, normally the question I get is the opposite, is how do you stop people having that? And the answer is buy small bags. You know, I have to buy the bag of 6 of popcorn, because if not, I'm smashing the whole bag. And it's just getting that discipline around what you're doing. But if I buy one of those, it's gone. It's game over. I've been fine with pasta on competition day. And again, it's what are the needs. Most people are fine with pasta. I can't comment on how much of that actually gets absorbed. Nothing's been flagged to me on any workshop, CPD, that actually pasta's not a good one. I'm pretty sure if it was one that we really should be avoiding on competition day, it would have been definitely flagged with the nutrition squad at the Institute a while ago. So based on that, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't have pasta on that competition day. It is very balanced. It's like, say, pasta a serving's got 9 grams of protein in it as well. So it is a very balanced one. So yeah, it will be quite slow release for that reason, probably because of its high protein intake. Generally speaking, if you have cut protein and you combine it with 10-15 grams of carbs, so you can get protein shakes, can't you? And they've got about 20-25 grams of protein in there. And if it's just whey, you might get 1 gram of carb. But research does show that actually if you have 10-15 grams of carbs, you absorb more and it takes more across the gut, because the carbohydrate acts as more as a transporter. And it's just shown to have better, in terms of measuring the photosynthesis at the muscle, it's shown to have better photosynthesis rate and protein turnover if you put in a little bit of carb than if you just have nothing at all. Based on that, you could assume that maybe it should be okay, but I can't prove it to you right here, right now, just based on that theory. Protein foods. So these are some of the protein foods that you've got: meat, fish, nuts, seeds, tofu, dairy, eggs, legumes, and corn. Obviously, there's a bit of an overlap there with some of them. There's nothing wrong with corn. Someone asked me yesterday, what about corn? And I did loads of reading on it when I qualified about 6 years ago. One thing I can say is a perfectly good protein source to use. It has no negative impact on muscle turnover, protein synthesis, anything like that. It's a very effective source for people to have. There are 2 types. You've got your carnivores and your herbivores. And again, just splitting them into those 2 profiles. I did quite a talk yesterday, I say, on recovery. And one thing that I did do is I talked a lot around animal protein being a complete protein. So you get 20 amino acids in total. You'll find all 20 amino acids in your animal protein. That is optimal for protein synthesis because you get all the branched chain amino acids in there, such as leucine, which is gold for muscle turnover. So what does protein do and why it's important? I'll just whack them all up. Okay, so protein is important obviously in muscle repair recovery. That is one of its primary roles that we've got. We're all power athletes. You want to be as strong as you can possibly be. What I mean by muscle turnover is that when you have protein, it breaks down into amino acids and goes to the bloodstream. Once it gets to the bloodstream and it reaches the muscle, it will then be absorbed by the muscle and you go into what is known as positive protein balance, which means you're growing and you're repairing and you're adapting to your training. After 3-4 hours, quite similar to the carbohydrates, you'll use up all those amino acids and you go into negative protein balance, which means the body is breaking down and pulling away all the damaged fibres that you may have got from training. The aim as an athlete is to spend more time in positive and as little time in negative as you possibly can. So that every 3 to 4 hours you should be looking at hitting that protein intake and just pushing that back up again. So breakfast, lunch, dinner should all have sufficient amount of protein in there. And then morning snacks, tricky when you're at school or college. Most people will go for fruit, which I wouldn't normally criticise. But then post-training recovery, make sure you're getting a high protein hit in there with, an Arla yogurt or a high protein yogurt. If people do use protein shakes, again, make sure they're in form sport. Or people use a tuna infusion, pots, chicken, whatever it is that that athlete chooses to use, but there's another opportunity to get that hit in immediately after training. That is why it's so important, especially as power athletes. Our demand is greater than what it is in endurance, and it's greater than what it is in people who don't train at all. So it's really important that you keep that nice and frequent over 5-6 meals a day if you can. That will obviously repair damage the fibres and reduce soreness. It does enhance body composition, so again, if people are looking to lose weight, your protein demand is significantly higher than what it is if you're not wanting to lose weight. We generally push up the protein and would reduce the carbs away from the training. And it's got a high satiety as well, so it does keep you fuller for longer. I've definitely found that if I'm having a high protein yogurt, which is my new go-to, if you like, instead of the Haribo equivalent that I may have had, it does fill a small hole. It does keep you fuller for a little bit longer. So again, quite similar to your protein demands, they do vary depending on your type of training. If you do full body training, you can absorb more protein after training. You can absorb up to 40 grams of protein. That's the equivalent of 2 chicken breasts. Okay, that is a lot of protein that you can absorb after full body exercise. The minimum you should be getting in is 20 grams anyway. You should at least be getting that 20 grams in. And I've said there before, it will help with your body composition goals. If you're pushing that up and you're removing some carbs around from training, that is going to impact your body composition to make you stronger and better from a power to weight ratio, which is incredibly important in the jumps. What is the recommended daily protein intake for an injured athlete? And this comes back to me saying it's relative to body mass. So for an injured athlete, should they have 1.2 grams per kilogram body mass, 1.6 grams per kilogram body mass, or 2 grams per kilogram body mass for an injured athlete? Yeah, so just that 50 kilo runner, the endurance athletes, 1.2 to 1.4, that is kind of increasing. They're kind of indicating now endurance runners need more. Vaulters, 1.6 to 1.8, and injury need more than that. So people get injured and they tend to write it off and go, what's the point? And it all goes wrong. And then they come to me and they say, I've been injured, and actually we need to ramp their protein up so much more just to maintain that lean mass, because you're not getting the stimulus that you used to because you're injured, but you still need to keep the amino acids going in just to maintain lean mass as best as you possibly can. So that's just an example of what that looks like really. If you take 50 times by 1.2, you've got 60 grams, which is just 3 chicken breasts, which isn't that hard to hit. But when you start looking at the Volta, if you start looking at 1.8 to, it's 126 grams, which does build up in terms of the food. But again, if you get it right, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and your recoveries, you can hit that number very, very easily. Injury can be quite hard, and hypertrophy, if you like, can be quite hard to hit those higher numbers, and you do need to be really strategic with your plans. So recovery guidelines, again, I've just abbreviated, kept it really simple, but immediately after your session, getting some carbohydrates after exercise, that again is going to depend on how hard your session is. If you've done a technical session ready to compete in the summer, you probably find you don't need much carbs at all, and you can just keep your protein in. If you're in the middle of conditioning, winter training, you've done a conditioning session, you might find you want to throw a banana in afterwards as well. Repair, and again, you need to get some protein in with that. I'm, as I've said, very big on the high protein quark and all the yogurts. I think it's real food, it's natural. I've got divers that will fill the fridge up with the tuna infusion pots. I've got a diver that will cook his own chicken and then will marinate it in his own sauce because he's full time, he's got the time to do that. They work really, really well. And then I've got some that will just rely on supplements because it's convenient for them. And rehydrate, not massive in this room. Unless obviously you're going one with the training, you're out on the infield quite a lot, or if we do get the heat wave at the national champs. Dehydration beyond 2% can impair physical performance. For power events, you're looking at more 3-4%, so it is a little bit more. But again, if you are doing sweaty sessions, weighing yourself before and weigh yourself afterwards and seeing how much you've lost and then putting that back in, it's quite a nice way of getting a bit of guide for that. But I think a lot of people tend to forget to rehydrate after they've been training. So this is what it looks like on a guide, on a timeline really, just to try and sum it up for you. So this is fueling and recovery. So stocking up 3 to 4 hours before, topping up 60 minutes before. If you need to maintain during your session, then there's an opportunity to put something in there. I have actually put on that bit if the session's 2 hours or longer. And then repair and recovery, I've split it into 2 phases, which is similar to what they use at British Athletics, so some of the athletes may be familiar with it. But phase 1 is immediately after that session, so as soon as you've left the track, get your yogurt in, get some carbs in if you've done a hard session, and then walk away. And then as soon as you get home, that's when you go back and you just have a nice balanced meal. Okay, carbs, proteins, fats, nice and simple. It is difficult. I mean, for that you don't have to have a sit-down meal, you can still get it balanced through, like, if you go sandwich, wraps, eggs on toast, beans on toast, those kind of things. If I get in late, to be honest, I'm generally an egg and toast person, and I know what you mean, you don't always want to have something that late. Ideally, if you can take something to fuel before the session as well, that will help. It doesn't mean that you can't grab like all the yogurts and things to fill you up, because the yogurt, all the stuff does come in a pouch as well, which is dead easy if it's in a pouch. But you can still have that and then go home and get something else and keep it light. And that should hopefully fill a hole. All I'm thinking is that if then you've got all the next day to hopefully follow a balanced diet and replenish, you'll recover throughout the day before the evening again. Is kind of where my thoughts going with that. But bits of food prep in terms of taking food with you that you can have before in. And sometimes it depends on the session, doesn't it? So you can graze on a bit of a sandwich throughout this. Depends on what you're doing. So eating the right nutrients at the right time optimizes training, performance and adaptations, which is the big thing that you're looking for. You want those muscular adaptations for training and health. Name 3 sources of omega-3, which are your good fats. Well, the fish, yeah, which kind of fish? Salmon. Yeah, your salmon, your mackerel, your sardines are really high in omega-3, which is a source called EPA specifically. It's about a 20-syllable word. That is massively important for reducing inflammation and also increases health. So it's a really good source to have. Anything else? Seeds, nuts, seeds, yeah, avocado, olive oil, those kind of things. So you've got your good fats and your bad fats over there. Your good fats, your omega-3s, salmon, mackerel, sardines, they're high in EPA, as I've said. So that's your primary source for reducing inflammation. The others below, avocado and below, they're high in what's called APA, which is at the beginning of the spectrum of omega-3. So they are very good for immunity, but they're not as effective as getting your oil efficient. That is the best source of omega-3 that you can really get because it's so high in EPA. So fats. It is all about balance. We do need both. So in no circumstance I'm saying you're not allowed any saturated fat in your diet. As humans, we need both. But if you don't get it right, if you have too much of the bads, obviously you get the obvious things, weight gain, cardiovascular disease, and it's very pro-inflammatory. So if you go to the national championships at Bedford and then you go to the McDonald's that is opposite the road, it is pro-inflammatory and it does impair recovery. Especially if you're competing the next day or if you're preparing for the Worlds that you've been selected for, think about what you're doing, think about what your goals are for that season when you make those decisions. And in terms of the benefits of it, it is your second fuel source. It is an essential fatty acid and fat-soluble vitamin D as well. It's really important. And as I've already said, reduces inflammation. It does boost immunity. How many servings of fruit and veg should you have a day? 9? 7? It has gone up to 7 now. I'm not going to talk through every single one of these, but as you can see, a general rule of trying to eat the rainbow, and I don't mean Skittles, it helps to get everything in your diet a nice, colourful plate. Everything's got a different role, and I've selected the things on there that are important to performance. So I'm not just sitting here telling you to eat your 5 a day because the government told you to and the NHS told you to. It is about performance. So about just keeping your plate as colourful as possible at all times. Calcium. So what I've got vitamins and minerals. I've only picked 3. These are the 3 most important ones that you need for performance yet again. And again, we had a debate about this in the pole vault, wasn't you? About bone health. But peak, this is a big one for me. Again, working in sports where we do a lot of DEXAs and checking out on bone health and whether it's optimal, whether we've got healthy athletes. But peak bone uptake is achieved. Does anybody know at what age your bones become as dense as they can possibly be? I've put 23. There is a bit of a range between boys and girls and who develops first. And obviously you don't wake up on your 23rd birthday and be like, yes, I'm dense. It doesn't work like that. But you have got to the age of 23 to make sure your bones are as dense as they can possibly be, approximately. Why is that important? That for me is important because I do work with a lot of athletes who are in reds, which means they are low energy availability. They're not meeting their energy needs. They're not eating enough. And if you're insisting on putting your body through physical training and you're not giving yourself enough energy just to do the day-to-day things in life, your body will compromise and find energy from elsewhere. If you're not getting energy from food, it's going to take it from muscle breakdown, it's going to take it from bone health, and the worst case scenario, it shuts off some of the hormones, which could be estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels can drop, those kind of things. So I do work with some athletes where when you DEXA them, they're 21, 22, and the bone density is suboptimal, and it's like you've got, 12 months to get this up, and because once it's set, it's pretty much set. It might fluctuate a little bit with training. Obviously the impact will help it a little bit, but it should really be through the ceiling. And I see some really scary scores, and it's because they're not meeting their energy needs, or because the calcium is just, they're not eating any calcium in the diet. So it is really, really important that we do touch on that, because I think some people kind of don't see the implication of not meeting your energy needs and just not getting all the nutrients in your diet. How many servings of dairy should you have a day? To maintain general health, how many servings of dairy should you have a day? 4, don't put Casimir dairy, it's not far off. 2 to 3 servings per day. So your daily allowance, this is general, we don't have guidelines for athletes unfortunately. 700 milligrams per day, that is actually quite easy to hit. When you look at it, you're looking at 2-3 glasses of milk. It's really not that hard to hit. So as soon as you put your milk in your porridge or your cereal, and then you have your yogurt after training, for example, to help you recover, you're well on your way, because you will be getting in other things as well, such as your green veg and other sources. So it's really not that hard to hit. But you're amazed at a lot of people who don't actually hit it, because you say you're having porridge, then they're mixing it with water or something like that. Quite easy to miss. So this is your Vit D, the sunshine vitamin. Again, a lot of research going into it. It is still in its baby days, to be fair, but we have found that if you've got optimal vitamin D levels, it does enhance actually power, and it will also enhance the recovery that you've got in there. It's massively important in terms of your immunity, and as we've already highlighted on, it is essential for bone health, so vitamin D does help the absorption of calcium across that. So true or false, you can't absorb vitamin D through sunscreen? It's true. So when they're telling you to put your Factor 50 on, take care of yourself, and like you say, send your kids to school with sunscreen on, actually, it does, it blocks it. You don't synthesize vitamin D through sunscreen. So yeah, the question is, how do you get it in? And that's like the answer is, or the really impractical is kind of going out there for 10-15 minutes and coming back in and then applying it. Because if I do skip to that slide where you've got Mr. Sunshine or whatever he's called, Mr. Happy, I don't know what he is. It is guidelines that are just 10-15 minutes a day on the arms and the face through April to November in this country is enough to synthesize your vitamin D levels. So it's not like you need a lot of exposure. You really, really don't. It's just in terms of applying suntan lotion, it's just ridiculously impractical. And there's not much advice that we can do for that. And as I've said, that if you are with the national governing body in the winter months, they will screen and supplement you with the vitamin D that you need, or you just nag your coach to go on with the training. Guys, that works, treat, get out the country.